Hello, welcome to GrandOldTeam TV. I'm joined by Graham from Roker Report. Graham, thanks for coming on to GrandOldTeam TV, mate. Really appreciate it.
No problem, mate. Anytime.
You were just saying there that you've got a black cat, which is obviously very appropriate, being a Sunderland fan, and he did appear in the background, so I'll be looking out for him, and hopefully he'll make an appearance. What's his name, by the way?
One of them is called Hans, and I've got another cat which is called Enid.
Okay, so that's not Sunderland related. You didn't have a player,
sad.
Back in the '60s called Hans or something, right? Fair enough. Okay.
Wife wouldn't let it, mate. Wife wouldn't let it.
Yeah, the black cat on its own is more than enough, I suppose. Mate, yeah, so Everton and Sunderland now have a bit in common, don't we? To be fair, as we just said off camera there, you've got a whole host of former Everton players now in the ranks. You've got David Moyes as the Everton manager. So, first of all, let's start with Moyes, because we started to talk about Moyes before I hit record, and you obviously started to go off on one. I was like, Graham, save the rant for when I press record, mate, 'cause it sounds like you've got a lot to say. So tell us then, as a Sunderland fan, how do you feel about David Moyes?
Well, when we first got him, when Allardyce went, I was admittedly gutted. And I think he's got a perception, Allardyce, that he's a boring manager, he plays bad football. But honestly, since the Peter Reid days, that was the first manager I could get my teeth into. Do you know what I mean?
Okay. That you could properly get behind then.
Yeah, it was someone who I could identify with, someone who was, maybe a little bit self-absorbed, but that's all right. If it benefits us, that's fine. And generally, we were playing good football. When he went, it was disappointing, but you couldn't begrudge him an England job. That's what he wanted. It was just our luck. And my first thought was, and I think everyone's first thought was, David Moyes. Yeah, he'll do the same job. Defensively sound, experienced, did a good job with Everton. He should be fine. But we're 6 months on. No.
It's just not happened then. What is it? I mean, from the outside looking in, Graham, is it the fact that he's just got a whole host of really below par players there, and there's not a lot that he can do, or is it like a tactical thing? Because it's not, the team isn't that much different from Allardyce's one, right?
Not really, not massively, but I'd say the big difference for him, and to be fair to Moyes, he's had a lot of injuries. He's had injuries to his talisman Lee Cattermole. You've had Jan Kirchhoff, who was probably our best midfielder last season. You had the whole Jan and Vila situation. We'll probably touch on this later, but the Lamine Kone situation didn't help anything. But the problem he's got is Sunderland is a club very similar to Everton. They have passionate fans that want someone that they can get behind, says the right things and connects very, very well. Moyes, from the second game he came in, said, we're in a relegation battle. And maybe that's realism, but you don't want that. And it's just continuous bad sound bites from him, which it's got to the point when we're getting humped off Stoke at home and humped off Southampton at home, you're just kind of going, because he just doesn't inspire.
Yeah, yeah. That's an issue. That resonates really well, and there'll be Evertonians watching this. I remember back in 2012, we played Liverpool in the semi-final of the FA Cup, and we were above Liverpool in the league, and we're going quite well. And in the press conference before the semi-final, David Moyes sat there and said, we're the underdogs, and wanted to make a big thing of this. And this is something that he would talk about, taking a knife to a gunfight when we go away to the bigger sides in inverted commas.
Yeah.
He'd talk about a ceiling. He couldn't get above it with Everton. So it sounds like he's carried that on at your place, and he sets expectations incredibly low, which sometimes work for him. But then obviously when things don't go well, it's kind of like, what's your actual plan then? That seems like that's the issue.
I think the problem he's got is we've had 4 seasons of shite, and more, and it's continuously got worse every season, and we've just escaped it. And I suppose, if he came in and said, it could be difficult this season, I'm just starting, that's fair enough. But I mean, in January, he said, we found out we had no money. We had a big, the official website had a thing where the CEO, Martin Bain, came out and said, we don't have great money, we're going to pretty much go with what we've got. And then those rumours came out we had 15 million. So it kind of lifted the expectation of, well, we can bring someone in, we can manoeuvre stuff a little bit. Rumours of Patrick Van Aanholt going, there was a bit of extra money. And he came out and he went, well, the players I'm looking to bring in are not going to make a huge difference. And it was like, well, we need them to. And why would they want to come? And then lo and behold, he went back to Everton and signed Everton players, and that's all he does.
So on that note, then, just talking about the Everton lads. So just before I picked up the call to you, Graham, I wrote down the Everton lads, and I think I've got them all right. Oviedo, Rodwell, Joleon Lescott, Pienaar, Gibson, and Victor Anichebe. So there's 6 there in total. Out of those lads, then, I think Evertonians watching this will be intrigued to know which ones have potentially stood out for you, which ones were you excited about, and which ones out of those lists you just like, that Dave, I've got absolutely no idea what you're doing with him.
Yeah, it's a real mixed bag, truth be told. I mean, in the summer, obviously I'll start with Rodwell. He was the first year that wasn't brought in. Rodwell, how do I describe Rodwell? He's awful. He's really, really awful. He's terrible. But recently, he's sparked a little bit back into life. But to sum up Rodwell in a really, really short kind of summary of his career so far, 36 starts, 1 win.
Yeah.
That sums you up. I think he's been better with Ndong next to him in the past few weeks because he's got someone that can, the water carrier, and it gives him a little bit more freedom. He tries, I think, too hard to impress because he's a £10 million midfielder that didn't play for 2 years, but he's always injured. There's something wrong with him mentally somewhere with that, and he's not what we paid £10 million for. A huge disappointment.
It's a shame, that one, because, you know, as you've alluded to there, you know, when he started at Everton, we were all extremely excited about him, and there was a point when David Moyes kind of found a decent role for him, and we all kind of were like, oh, this guy's going to be a bit of a gem, but obviously it didn't happen, and then the City buying him was always a little bit strange. I think that was just to fill their kind of English player quota. But yeah, so that's strange. So what about someone like, because Stephen Pienaar, you know, Evertonians held Pienaar in quite a high regard. What kind of impact has he made now at the tail end of his career?
I really, really don't like Stephen Pienaar.
Like, I don't like him.
He's up there with like some of the worst players I've seen. Period.
Really?
Yeah, he's awful. Like he's too small. He's too slow. I mean, he got brought on at half time against Southampton to change the game, which is it was you could hear the whole stadium groan to begin with and almost laugh. But he just can't keep the ball. He doesn't create anything. He dives into silly tackles. He's finished. At this level, he's completely finished. In my opinion, and I think there'd be a lot of Sunderland fans who'd agree with me. Some people may choose Rodwell, but Pienaar's probably the worst of all. Probably.
Really? So, am I right in thinking that David Moyes has been playing him in the centre of midfield, or is that what made that? I don't understand that. I don't get that. I mean, I think Pienaar had quite a serious knee injury, if I remember rightly, towards the back end of his time at Everton. And you know, very, very skillful player. He's got that in his locker. But it's a strange one. I thought I was a bit confused when he went up there. You know, that is a strange one. So, but anyway, to that kind of surprises me that you say he's one of the worst players that you've seen, because he must have really dropped off then.
I think he was brought in as numbers because of the injuries, and I think people could kind of accept that when he came in. But now that we've got players sort of coming back, like I just don't want him anywhere near the team.
Right.
If I'm honest. He's not going to drag us out of anything, and he's not going to be there if we do manage to drag ourselves out of anything. So what's the point?
What about Victor Anichebe then? Because obviously he came in now, he's picked up an injury, which is standard Victor Anichebe. But you're impressed with him then. I want to focus on at least one player that you're happy with that's worn a blue shirt previously.
There's a couple I really like Anichebe. Anichebe, in my opinion, totally changed the outlook of the season from being relegated by February or January, whatever it would have been.
Did he form a decent partnership with Defoe? You know, big man, little man type thing.
It was weird. I think Moyes stumbled onto it. I don't think it was his plan, but we were playing like a 4-2-1-3 up front, and he sort of played him on the left wing, like an inside forward, and
he used to do that at Everton. He used to play on. You'd have him out on the flank. There was a period of time when he used to do that frequently. So I didn't know whether he just reverted to like Defoe and Anichebe up top, but then David Moyes playing two strikers is unheard of. So I don't know why I thought that. So
Anichebe, him getting injured's a massive blow. Like, I would say he's one of our most important players. The impact he's had was short term, but in the 2 months he played, he was very, very good. And I like Oviedo from what I've seen of him so far. Like, Oviedo looks like he's going to save us money from us selling Van Aanholt, and he looks like a better defensive player, and he also looks pretty decent going forward.
He is better going forward. He's not the best defensively, and that was like he took a little bit of stick towards the back end of his Everton career. I always liked Brian Oviedo, and I was very vocal in defending him on Twitter because a lot of Everton fans are like celebrating his departure. And the one thing you'll get with Oviedo, we've already mentioned things on the pitch, but off the pitch, he kind of embraces the club. And as a supporter in the modern day era, it's nice when you have a player who kind of loves your club and will come out and say the right things. There'll be people listening to this going, "What's he talking about? He's talking nonsense. I want him to do it on the pitch," but you don't have a lot of that anymore. So someone like Oviedo, he'll come out, he'll make an effort with the supporters on social media, just nice things, and he really seemed like he enjoyed his time at Everton, and I appreciated that. And there was a point, Graham, before he got the injury, he got an injury in a League Cup match or an FA Cup match, can't quite remember now, in Martinez's first year. And it was a shame because he was playing some really good football. He came in to replace Baines when Baines got injured, and we were all gutted when he got that injury. We were like, "Oh no, what we're going to do now?" So that's kind of testament to him. But he never kind of found his level after that. Someone else, just quickly, Darren Gibson. I believe he had a bit of a shocker. Did he against who did you play? Southampton. Was that true?
Yeah. I mean, he was all right. First 20 minutes, we actually played quite well, to be honest. But then the goal went in, and it's a thing with Sunderland where if a goal goes in, we've played well, or even if we're not playing well, the heads will just drop. And he was spraying passes around quite nicely. He was doing all right, and I wouldn't directly blame him. I wouldn't say he had a shocker. I think they all did in a sense, but you could tell by about the 60th minute, he was a lad that hadn't played professional top level football for the best part of a few months. You could see he was knackered, but I'm hopeful for Gibson. I think Gibson will be all right.
He's a decent footballer. What about someone else who will be of interest to Evertonians who hasn't actually played for Everton before, believe it or not? Is the lad Kone at centre half for you? Now he was heavily linked with a move to Everton in the summer. You said that might have had a bit of an impact on the start of your season, so obviously I apologise about that. Everton trying to bring him to Goodison Park, drag him to Goodison Park. What's happened to Kone then? Now is he performing quite poorly? Is he what part of the reason why you're conceding so many goals? What's the situation?
Kone, so back end of last season, obviously he scored twice against yourselves. He was one of the big reasons we stayed up. And when he came in with 18 million, I think I remember saying, today's market, I want 30. He was that important. And then he was pictured with an Everton fan, and he was whinging and moaning. Transfer request that was apparently handed in, but then wasn't. And you don't want that. Clubs like Everton and Sunderland don't want that. And I think the fans were a little bit knocked off. He came back and he was half-arsed in his performances. But then he went to the African Cup of Nations just as he was getting a bit of form back, and when he was out with the team in the AFCON, defensively we just looked worse. And then he came back against Palace and probably put in his best performance of the season. So I think he doesn't want to be there, but when he is there, his quality naturally shines through. But then he had a terrible game against Southampton. So, but I think he's our best centre half without a doubt. I think even half-past.
So I'm wondering whether or not, this season now, if he does want to leave still, if he's performed quite badly this season, as you say, up until before he went off to the African Cup of Nations. If Everton will bother coming back in for him now, that'll be one that we'll have to look out for. But I did want to ask you about him. So a question from just one supporter to another, then, Graham. Are you at a point now where, now this might sound a little bit mad, and tell me if it is, mate, but you're at a point now where you kind of just you know what, if we go down now, it might not be the end of the world, and we can kind of reset, maybe get someone else in, maybe, I don't know, stick with Moyes. It doesn't sound like you're too keen on that, but we can reset. I like sorry to bring them up, but like Newcastle have done, in a way. I mean, Sunderland are a big club. They shouldn't be down there, and it pains me to say that, honestly, mate. I've got a thing about, decent-sized clubs being in the Premier League. When you look at some of the absolute dog shit swirling around the league at the moment now, and you think, I'd like a club like Sunderland to stay up, but if it isn't to be. But anyway, what's your thoughts on that, mate? Are you kind of thinking maybe it wouldn't be a bad idea if we went down?
I think when it comes to the idea, there's a lot of people that have came with that idea, and someone did an article on Roker Report and said, some of the best seasons I had was us winning the league, and back in the days when we had Quinn and Phillips, and even the season under Roy Keane, I tend to agree with that. But for me, I'm a bit tired of every season being a struggle, and a lot of people say, if you go down, you could rebuild. But my thoughts are, if a club's managed correctly, you can rebuild in the big league. You can rebuild correctly, and I always want my club to be in the top league. I just don't want them to struggle every season. And I think, as much as it pains me to say it, I think Newcastle will come back up, and they were worse than us last season. But the difference was they appointed a manager in the summer who they wanted to stay, and that kind of galvanised things. I feel like if we go down with Moyes, he'll probably say something daft. He'll make us feel even more negative, and I think we'll just end up bouncing around mid-table. I don't think we'll rebuild the way we have under maybe Roy Keane. I want my club to be in the Premiership, and I think if we're going to rebuild, we rebuild in that division, and we do it correctly, and we get recruitment right, and we spend the money on the right players, we get the scouting right. Under Allardyce, we could have done that. Under Moyes, I don't know, but who would replace him? Truth be told, if Moyes was to go, I don't know. I don't know any other options. It's a bad period at the moment, to be honest.
Yeah, I feel for you, mate, and I think that's very sensible what you said there. About trying to do it within the Premier League, and I suppose I just wanted to ask the question because it is something that I thought about, and I think you've probably been asked it before by people who don't support Sunderland. And also, for every Newcastle, club that's gone down and looks like they're going to come straight back up, there's Blackburn Rovers. You know what I mean? And then where you just don't come back for a long time, and there is that issue as well, and obviously nobody wants to see that. So let's just wrap up then. But before we do, obviously a kind of a mutual connection between the two clubs, something that I think we're both we've both taken a lot of notes of, is the Bradley Lowry thing. So obviously Bradley's been down to Everton have looked after him, have obviously paid a lot of money to his treatment. As a Sunderland fan, mate, how does that make you feel? Have you been have you got a bit of a soft spot for Everton now?
I do, and I mean, I'll be honest with you. There's I'm Sunderland and Sunderland only. Like that's the way I am. But I've always kind of had a soft spot for Everton. I don't know why. Originally, I think they were always just a club that, because Goodison Park reminded me of Roker Park.
Yeah.
The club is a good old-fashioned team, which it's what Sunderland are. The fans are similar. They expect hard work. So I've always felt sort of a connection with Everton. We're both northern clubs. We both have the same expectations of the club and the players and the management. But I was actually on a holiday in Florida at the time, and kind of enjoying myself in the pool. And I saw the games on, watched the game, and seeing them come out for the Everton game, and then hearing what Everton did afterwards, I think it's a testament to what Everton are as a club and why I think I had a soft spot for them beforehand. It's a shame. It's horrible to know what's happening with him, but the way that he's been taken to by Everton, who they don't really have to do what they have to do, but I think it shows the people of Everton are so similar to the people of Sunderland that they did see him in that game as a mascot and say, we want to do more. And I think every Sunderland fan has gone, for that, I hope Everton do something. I hope Everton do well. And it's deserved.
Yeah, of course. And I think, I completely agree with everything you said. It is, it's a tragic story, but if Everton, and Sunderland, I saw the picture of Jermaine Defoe going and seeing Bradley in hospital the other day, and I think if both clubs can, make things more comfortable for him, then obviously that's fantastic. And I think as Evertonians, we're really proud of our club. Just touching on the soft spot thing, I think I know where that comes from, Graham. I think it's the fact that we've got some gobshites in our shadow, and you have as well in the former Newcastle. So we'll just put it down to that as well. Before obviously little Bradley, that probably comes from that, mate. We both have to deal with absolute morons as neighbours. I mean, ours are a little bit closer than yours. You can shut yourself off from yours a little bit more, but obviously we're in very close proximity with the Reds. So yeah, mate. Look, thank you for coming on. Great, really appreciate it, mate. Best of luck for the rest of the season, and obviously, well, bar the weekend aside.
Game, you've got no worries. It'll be fine. We never really win that much of Goodison, so don't worry.
In fact, actually, before we go, this is mental of me. I forgot to ask you. Let's get a prediction just quickly then before we go. How do you reckon you'll get on?
I don't think. I think many people will think we'll get annihilated, but I think realistically we got annihilated last year. So Lightning very rarely strikes twice. I think it'll be comfortable though, 2 to 3-0 Everton.
You reckon? Yeah. Well, we did. It was a bit of an annihilation at Goodison, but then ironically up at your place towards the very, I think it was Martinez's last game.
It was.
It was horrendous. It was absolutely horrendous, mate. But we'll see. The chances are, mate, you're putting a performance. Obviously, all the football's that way. You know, you've got the likes of all those former Everton players. Moyes, you'll probably come and turn us over. To be honest with you,
we won't.
Let's hope not. Anyway, just one final thing before you go. GrandOldTeam question: what do you have from the chippy?
What did I have from the chippy?
What do you have? Yeah, what's your normal selection?
Chips and curry sauce.
Really? No fish? Thought I'd have you down as like a cod man.
Really?
Yeah.
Nah. I don't like to admit this, man, but I'm a vegetarian, so.
Oh, okay, right, fair enough. So just the chips and the curry sauce there.
But they do a pretty good vegetarian haggis, to be fair, around my chippy. So there you go.
You've been up in Scotland. If I'm ever in Scotland, I might try a vegetarian haggis. I'm not too sure though. I can't commit to that now. I'll see how that goes. But anyway, great, mate. All the best. And thank you for coming on to GrandOldTeam, mate. Appreciate it.
And mate, you as well. Cheers, bud. All right.